Following our Working Wonder table talks, we have additional highlights with our guests. And I'm sitting here right now with Marie van Niekerk, former creative director of Boss Iced Tea. Marie,
hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
You told us already that you just decided to step down 3 weeks ago to embark on a new endeavor.
Yes.
But before that, you were the creative director and you had a strong hand in the build of the brand and the branding image. So a very distinct thing about Boss Iced Tea is, of course, the branding.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the reasoning and the process behind it and what makes Boss Iced Tea?
Great, no, of course. So Boss, we started it in 2010 in Cape Town. It's very much also visually a South African and a contemporary African brand. The symbology and the colors is very African. The lion is one of the most potent African symbols. Bos, the word is coming from rooibos, and rooibos as our key ingredient, our magic ingredient, only grows in South Africa. But I think one of the most distinct features is also the colors, and that's very much inspired, from what you see in Africa and what the contemporary African expression of that has been very powerful for us. And I think when we launched it in 2010, or it was developed in 2009, the iced tea space and the beverage space was actually, there wasn't much disruption happening there. And
because you had Lipton and you had
Lipton. At that point, there was Nestea. That was the project with Nestle and Coca-Cola. And Boss really disrupted and turned it on its head. Even the shape of the cans at that point, the slimline cans was something that you only saw in the energy drink space, with Red Bull leading that. So at that point, all the cans were like these dumpy, fat cans. And so when Boss came out, actually, people really didn't know what it was. They actually thought it was an energy drink, and it was very, very disruptive. But there was, such a strong emotional appeal to it. And we tried, and I think we succeeded in creating something really beautiful and a beautiful object that people just resonated with and were drawn to it. And our philosophy has always been that people shop with their eyes first, even if it's a beverage. So you first see something, and then, unless it catches your eye, you won't even be attracted to investigate further. And then, obviously, once you've seen it, you're attracted to it, you'll purchase it. You'll drink it. It has to taste great, of course. And then the intellectual, side of it really comes later. So I think the health benefits of rooibos and the fact that it's lower in sugar and caffeine-free and all those things are the sort of, additional bonuses. And it's items that you discover later for yourself. And I've often met people who've been big Boss fans, have been drinking it for years and years, and that had no idea that it was even healthy or that it was, better for you. And it's just a testament as to how powerful the branding is and psychologically how people really can fool themselves thinking that they shop intellectually, because I believe that people shop emotionally. They need to be drawn to something, and then when you have both stories together, the health side of it is really more of an intellectual side of it, which you then can use to warrant your decision, and then you feel better about what you've done.
So two interesting things coming from what you just told, because the topic that we're covering is let's entertain consumption.
Yes.
One thing is that during our table talks, you shared with us that with people shopping from. During a pandemic, during a crisis, they're shopping with their sort of gut feeling or with what they're used to, which maybe has brought them back to Lipton or Nestea in this case, or the Boss Iced Tea isn't on their top of mind.
Yeah.
So how do you see that? And in relation to that, branding is one of the first things that's going out of the door when people need to cut back on costs.
Yes.
So what you see happening is that a lot of companies that had commercials planned or creative products or new ideas, they told all those agencies that were working on it, let's pull the brake, pause. We're pushing the brakes. Let's see in 6, 9, 12 months where we're at, and if we can restart it. So there's two things to it. One is that, hey, what you said is people buy with their eyes and with their
emotion,
with their emotion. So how does that relate to you've investing so much of your time and energy into creating that strong brand of Boss, and then seeing what the pandemic does to the buyer, but then also what's your advice actually to companies regarding investing in branding?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. I think the one aspect also that's for us that's been a key thing is that we definitely see it in the beverage space is that the exploration side of where people discover new brands is much more in the on-trade space than in retail. So we've also built the brand especially in the early days, also in South Africa, in the horeca, in the on-trade space.
Yeah.
And that's when people are more open to, and also very much in events as well. That's where people are more open to new experiences. They want to be entertained. They want to discover new things. And in retail, it is much more, once you've got to know a brand and once you've formed a relationship with it, that's when you're obviously stocking it up for at-home consumption. But for the beverage space, it is, and you see it a lot with even with alcohol brands, and the experience happens in the on-trade space. So
I've never really consciously thought about that, but now that you mention, we had this summer where Jill's was flooding the terraces of the Netherlands, and then the summer after it was the orange one, the bitter.
Oh, the Aperol.
The Aperol Spritz that was pushed onto these places. Yeah. So
then for you, for instance, if you now come across it in the beach terraces and in summer and everyone's drinking Aperol, you would then get introduced to it and you form all these positive emotions with it, and then once you're hooked, then you would, next time you go to a Hal & Hal or to a liquor store, you are much more likely to pick up a bottle of Aperol to then serve as drinks for home consumption. So that is the model, and I believe that it really works with beverages as well. So coming back to the pandemic, our focus was we had a very strong on consumption program planned, and unfortunately, obviously, that had to
go out the window.
That had to be cancelled. Luckily, our product it is very like we call it like shopper stopper power. So in a retail environment, it does stand out on shelf. It really brings brightness to that category. So people who already are Boss fans would continue to buy it there, but we don't see a lot of conversion like from people who have never seen it before in a retail environment. So you do need both. You do need the sort of,
and it's already, you can buy it in every retail store in the Netherlands. So the Albertijn, the Jumbo, the big ones.
It's available in retail. And I think the big shift of also going online, beverages isn't historically something that people buy online because it's very heavy, but slowly that is also changing. And so one of the pivots that happened in the Netherlands was to open our own online Shopify store for Boss Iced Tea. Once again, it is something that works well when you have the whole ecosystem working well together, when you discover it in a terrace and in a restaurant or a horeca outlet, and then you can obviously then continue to buy it for home delivery in the cases. But that's something that we're now needing to work at getting that ecosystem in the new way of living. So,
but and so, as you said, the branding, the colors, the lion, there's a whole story behind the way you're promoting the product, which has been an integrated part from the start. It's not something that like afterwards you thought, oh, maybe we should think about how we're gonna actually package it or sell it.
No, it was absolutely part of right from the beginning. It was such a strong part of how the whole project came to life. Yes.
And why was that? Is it really also because you believe that that's the selling power, or is there something else that pushed you to wanting to stand out in the crowd?
Yes, I mean, I think, like I said earlier in our discussion, the philosophy of Bos is that healthy can be fun. And if you look at the way that, historically healthier products were packaged, it was very brown and green and very sort of, boring and very stereotypical codes in that category. And when we created Bos, it was an absolute belief to have the best possible ingredients, making it taste the best we can possibly make it taste, and with all the health cues that's important, and this universal shift of health consciousness, we were tapping into that trend, but we didn't want to do it in a boring way, and there were enough brands doing it in a traditional, maybe boring is a strong word, but in a more traditional way. So I think what Bos's success has been is to really break that mold and to prove that being healthy can be fun, and the fun comes through the colors and the entertainment and the coolness of the packaging, and that you don't have to sacrifice one for the otherwise, because I think the whole notion of health has often historically come with something that you're giving up on, you probably shouldn't be smoking, or you shouldn't have that second drink or something. So it's always a little bit of like, you're sacrificing something. And with Bos, we believe that you can have it all. You can have all the fun, all the coolness, all the vibe, all the colors, and still have a healthier option.
So would your advice to other entrepreneurs be to embrace that story and embrace the branding right from the start, and have that be part of yours, or that it needs to be integrated to be actually successful in the end?
Absolutely, and every touch point of the consumer touch point, like it your packaging becomes in a way its own media. With something like a ready-to-drink product, you have to print 100,000 of the same colors per flavor. So it is almost like mass media. So if you think about it like that, you have this real opportunity to communicate with your fans, and your cans or your packaging becomes a media platform. And I think Bos has been able to use that very effectively.
You see it happening more and more in the sort of the smaller beer brands that
exactly.
put funny stories or a little background on their labeling.
Yeah, the storytelling.
As well.
Through your coasters, through the beer mats, through your labels. Every touch point becomes an opportunity to connect with your fans. So
what's next for you with all this creativity within you and the experience that you have in building this successful brand? And I'm not even aware of what you did before Bos, but
yeah, well, I come from an art background, so from a creative background. I studied art and design in South Africa. I actually was a jewelry designer in my previous life. I specialized in jewelry design, and I worked as a jeweler in London. But at that point, I don't know, I just felt that that physically making jewelry, my world was in a way becoming smaller, because it's quite funny because I loved it when I was studying it, but it was in an environment of, in a classroom and with all the other students, and also doing other BA subjects like philosophy and language and art history. So I think that the course was very broad and very expansive. But then working as a jeweler in London, I found my world becoming smaller, and I didn't like that. Mm-hmm. And I actually had almost like a quarter-life crisis in sort of 25, 26, where I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I can't picture doing this for the rest of my life. So I went back to South Africa, and I actually joined a summer arts festival that was hosted by one of the biggest wine farms in Cape Town called Spear, and I got involved in more of the eventing side of that, and that put me on a different trajectory, which I really enjoyed, and I realized that for me my strength was really in connecting with people and being sort of the glue between all these different creative platforms and within the creative industry. So I've often also thought with Bos that it's just a coincidence that it's a drink. If Boss was a fashion label, or if Boss was a music label, I would have also joined it in that capacity. So I do love food and I do love drinks. So it is a passion project of mine. But it's I think right now I'm in a fortunate position to, after 10 years of working really, really hard on something that I absolutely loved, which is in itself a very fortunate position to be in. I'm very excited to take time out and to really focus again on tapping into my personal creativity. I'm going to be studying I'm doing a master's degree starting in September in design and culture. And I think that will bring a lot of new energy and new ideas and new networks. I'm also very curious to get involved in smaller businesses, smaller projects. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the food industry. Like I said, for me, the creative platforms, I'm agnostic. It's wide open, and I do think it will be something within the creative industry, but not necessarily food.
Or maybe within an industry that needs to innovate. That needs to become a little bit more creative.
Yes,
that will be disruptive.
Exactly. Yeah. I've actually just invested in a small brand, also Cape Townian brand called Mami Wata. It's a surf brand, an apparel brand, a clothing brand. And they aesthetically they share a lot of similarities with Boss, because the creative director there is the same person who originally designed the Boss logo. So there's definitely a strong connection.
And what makes them different?
Well, it's a clothing brand that their position is really focusing on the power of African surf. And their position in the market is that if you look at all the surf brands, it's very blue-eyed, blonde-haired, sort of Australian legacy from the Billabongs and all those, like Quicksilver, all those brands. So it's very homogenous. And within Africa, there's a huge untapped. People don't even know about it, but there's also physically there's incredible surfing spots within Africa. And they've just harnessed the power of the sort of contemporary African aesthetic with the idea of travel and really exploring these places that a lot of people don't know about and bringing it all together in a beautiful brand. And I've just invested in them and looking forward to get involved in their expansion. They're also hoping to bring it
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's exciting, and I think that there's so much there's a lot of opportunities out there.
Yeah, we discussed that during the talks, of course, as well. I mean, the not neglecting all the negative impacts, death that has come from this crisis, which is not to be underestimated, especially not with the uncertainty of a possible second wave coming, but it's also ignited or reignited a force for good and exactly. Collaboration, innovation, trying out new things, being creative. Never waste a good crisis. We said it a couple of times already. And I think that there's also a lot of good coming from the current situation, and it's great for you to be in the position to also have the time and the headspace to
get involved.
To get involved.
Yeah, and I think that we also talked a little bit about what is shifting and what will staying. I mean, I do believe that people's values are shifting during this time, and that they are looking at brands with purpose and with meaning and with storytelling, and that it really is something that people are looking out for, and brands that resonate and that reflect them and reflect their own stories. So there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah. And I think what really resonates with me from the surf brand is the call for diversity.
Yes.
And it's a lot of it's a topic that's bubbling up for quite some years now.
And now it's really come to the forefront.
And now we have to. And connecting that to needing more purpose and a story behind everything that we do,
yes,
and to validate why we do certain things or why we choose, why we make the choices that we do. I think that's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see how Mami Wata, how they responded right in the crisis, because I mean, in South Africa, where I come from, I have obviously very strong ties there, and my family and a lot of my friends, and everything is still there. So the Netherlands is in such a different position than South Africa, and a very fortunate position, from an economic point of view. South Africa really is in a different situation altogether, and the unemployment level in South Africa, it was already, economically, it was already very borderline and very tough, and then the coronavirus has just really devastated a large part of the economy, and also so much of the people in South Africa are relying on informal trade and informal work, which is very hard to quantify, and also even with government bailouts or government support, you don't even know how to get to those people, how to for them to access that. And so what Mami Wata did was they launched a project called the Elba Project, and it was for the time during lockdown that all the online sales, or if you bought something online, that the profits would go to the Elba Project, which would then go directly to the pockets of the grassroots surf schools and the surf spaces within Africa that has no access to the government support. So that was a great initiative. And with BOS, we also, we're a South African brand. We needed to put our money where our mouth is in terms of supporting our local community. So since day one, we've always been planting trees. So for every 2,000 cans that we sell, we plant one tree. And to date, we're just on the 30,000 mark now. But during the Corona crisis, we really tapped into that partnership with Green Pop, which we've been planting the trees. And one of their co-founders, Jeremy Loops, is a musician in South Africa. He started a thing called...
I love him.
Great. Well, he started a fantastic initiative called the Big Food Drive. Yeah. Did you see that?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah. So we agreed with Green Pop for the time during lockdown to take some of the money that we're doing on tree planting to divert it to the Big Food Drive, and very happy to say that it was a huge success. And to date, I think they raised about 50,000 euros already and got 50,000 meals into the communities that need it most. So I think there's, I think brands really do have a responsibility to also respond to their own communities, and it's important. I mean, I think also the brands that show up in times of crisis are the ones that stick, and that
afterwards.
People, that afterwards can.
Let's hope that there comes an afterwards.
Yes.
And in the meantime, great to have a little bit more of an insight in your background and in BOS, but also in the importance of the brand and the story. And I think that's moving forward something that will be even more and more important and more valid. I think it's already what you see with the most successful brands, that they have that covered. And thank you so much for being here and for sharing that with us.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Thanks.